let me be clear. I support ICE 100%. But we always have in Utah. That's why we don't have a problem. Let me address Stack in the court. And I didn't hear about Glenn Beck coming about. This is how bad I am. Social media. Early exposure also increases the likelihood of sexually aggressive behavior, child abuse, involvement in sexual trafficking, and distorted views of relationships. Some of those, just that last one just lands on just logic. We know that. You just know that. Here's the one that blew my mind. Children under 12 years old who have viewed pornography are statistically more likely to sexually assault their peers.
Kennedy, and this is Ingrid Bettridge with the God and Country podcast. We're at the Utah State Capitol building, and here in a few minutes we're going to be doing an interview with Calvin Musselman, who is a senator up here, and seeing what he's doing up here on the Hill. So again, remember, like, subscribe, and share us out there on social media. We're trying to get ourselves out there as much as possible, trying to get past that YouTube suppression, so please get us out there and share us. We're going to have Senator Harper on next week. We've also got an expert coming in from Iran, and she's got her own podcast show going on there. She's called the Persian Redneck. Like, she's living out in the south here in the United States, but she's from Iran, and she's going to be telling us all about what's going on over there. Kind of a big deal right now. With Senator Musselman, he's got a lot of rewards coming from several different organizations like
Americans for Prosperity and from the Utah Taxpayers Association and several conservative grassroots groups.
So we're going to have a special podcast. We're going to have Trevor Lee. We're going to have Carrie Ann Lisby. We're going to have Dan McKay. And we're going to have Heidi Baldry.
And Utah Parents United.
Corinne Johnson is going to be on there with us. And then we're going to have 3 parents on there that have had children that have committed suicide. And we're going to be discussing the big suicide topic, the suicide belt, which is the Western United States for some reason.
And it's kind of a nonpartisan topic. So we hope that everybody can engage and put some thought into hearing what the opinions are and what we can do to make a difference here. Yeah,
we'll also be discussing DEI and CRT, a little bit of the same topic about our kids being exposed to too much internet, exposed to pornography on their school-assigned tablets. That's all going to be part of the discussion. But it's going to be here at the Capitol building on March 13th. March 13th at 11 a.m. 11 a.m. here. We're going to be in the press room. So if any of you know where the press room is, where they normally have press conferences, here at the Capitol building. So if you, our listeners, want to come and just kind of stand around and watch what happens, you're free to come and join us up here. So again, it's going to be on March 13th at 11 a.m. here at the State Capitol building. You're free to attend.
So as we start this conversation, we only had about 45, 50 minutes with the senator. So we had already started a conversation and just started recording, just started going. So you're going to go right into this conversation. We started it off with a bill that the senator is already put out there. It's already gone through committee and it's getting out onto the floor. But it's a bill that's going to be amplifying a previous bill that they had already passed several years ago, which is the age gate bill. That means before you can get to a pornographic site here in the state of Utah, you have to verify your age. So it's an age verification for anything pornographic, which should be able to keep anybody that is underage from going on to these sites. So now he's trying to strengthen this bill by making sure that roundabout ways like VPNs and other things, those kind of loopholes are being shut down, and these pornographic companies are being held accountable for still allowing circumventing ways to get to their sites by those who are underage. But at the same time, you'll see in the argument not prohibiting free speech and making sure that the bill will pass in a way that it doesn't get contested in the court system. I mean, that's his main goal, is making sure it does not get contested in the court system. So we're going to go right into this conversation with Senator Calvin Musselman. As we get into the conversation, I didn't turn off the autofocus on our camera, so you'll see the focus coming in and out. Next week when we get with Senator Harper, I'll be sure to be able to turn that autofocus off and make sure it's just a static focus, so don't let that bug your eyes a little bit. And then there's a very, very slight reverb. There's a single setting that I did click on when we were using our Bluetooth mics, and again, that will be solved next week, but just a very, very slight reverb, and then that focus does come in and out a little bit because I have the autofocus on and didn't turn on the static focus. But it's a great conversation with Senator Musselman, so stay tuned. Make sure that you go down below and you look at our new merch, the new t-shirts that we have. Buy some new t-shirts from us, support the channel, and appreciate you listening in.
Yeah, so that's a big deal. That's a big deal, that intermediate scrutiny. So I've opened the bill file based on that decision. That bill, Tom Leiter's bill, that decision. So now I'm putting in positive reinforcement. So we're going to have, within the Department of Commerce is the Department of Consumer Protection. That agency's, unfortunately, sometimes we have to have people do hard things, is going to go positively enforce them to age change, which means they'll have to have individuals that are hired to be able to websites.
That's a missing component we have.
Yeah, but I got more coming. So yeah, learn more. It's a big shift. So we're going to have, we didn't have positive enforcement. Now we're going to have it. But I'm also doing this is the part that part, because it's upheld, that law was upheld in Texas, that part, we're good. We won't get challenged. I can do positive enforcement. We can do, what are they going to sue? We already know what the Supreme Court said. There's already precedent, right? But I'm going to do an excise tax, 2% excise tax. So that's why I started talking about this tax course, because often they'll just, carte blanche, any tax raising, they go against. But I'm going to raise tax on pornography, because it's an excise tax. I don't ever raise taxes, but I only vote for bills that cut taxes, but I'm actually running a bill that raises taxes, which is weird to even say.
I have no problems with that at all.
Well, generally people won't, but you still have to. There's some that are purists, like the Utah. They probably will just stay neutral on it. When in general, they won't. Just in theory, they're going to oppose any new tax. So, but they'll probably stay neutral. Yeah. But the 2% excise tax is critical because it's actually fairly complicated, because we have what's called a streamlined sales tax agreement. Now I'm getting into weed. These are the fun weed. This is what I like. The deep kind of policy structure. With a few years ago, multiple states agreed. So we actually called it, I think, the Wayfair bill. Is Wayfair? Do you guys know what? I know what Wayfair is.
I know it's a website.
It's a website that sells furniture. I think
They sell a little bit of everything.
Yeah, okay. All right, that's the way they call it, the Wayfair bill. Probably inappropriately described, but what it did is it allowed everybody to agree. Okay, this is how we're going to do it. So if you're making desks in your garage and you want to sell on Wayfair, you could. You don't have to collect the tax or remit the tax or anything that you sell through that. Wayfair does it for behalf of you. Does that make sense?
They do that.
They do exactly that.
Yeah.
That's for the agreement multiple states got. We passed a set of laws that allowed that to happen, and so it works.
Yep, Wayfair does it now, and Amazon has to do it.
Right. So anytime you add a tax, though, because of that, with those states are all have to become reliant on how they charge tax. And if we add a tax like an excise tax, it works. But I couldn't just add any tax; it had to be explicitly an excise tax. But it works for other reasons. That's probably getting into too big weeds, but But that's what it is. An excise tax, similar to the extra tax that you do on tobacco or alcohol. It's similar to that.
This is Uriah Kennedy from God and Country, and I've been fishing since I was a little kid. My father used to take me out there and teach me how to tie the knots to get my lure on the end of that line and then cast it into the stream or in the local lake that we were fishing at. There are very few things in this world that are more relaxing and more fun than getting out on the water and pulling in a big fish. In order to have that type of success that you want, to be able to get out there with your kids and be able to have them have that success, or not get skunked yourself, you have to have the best equipment. We all have known and trusted Rapala from the time we were little kids. Rapala has the best lures and the best equipment that you could possibly buy. Trust Rapala in all these needs and go to Rapala by using the link that is on our description, or QR code that's going to be popping up on your screen. Again, you must use the link in our description or the QR code that's popping up on your screen. Trust Rapala for these fishing needs. Again, any type of lures, tools, knives, clothing, and apparel that you will need, you can go to Rapala and get those needs taken care of. Enjoy the water and enjoy being out there with your kids, and be successful at the same time, because there's nothing like getting skunked, but there's nothing more joyous than pulling in that big fish. So trust Rapala for those fishing needs, and go to Rapala right now using the link in the description, the QR code that's popping up on your screen, and thank you for supporting our channel.
But here's the key. This is where it gets really technical. It has to go into a restricted account. If it just goes into the general fund, the whole purpose of this is that it has to be, in order for it to be viewed from an intermediate scrutiny from the Supreme Court or any court, that it has to be solely for the protection of the youth. Do you understand? Whether it's the tax or the enforcement. That's the only way it'll work. So I'm doing a restricted account, and the money will go into that restricted account and can be only distributed through HHS for mental health for youth. That's it. That's all it can be used for. It can never go into the general fund. It's not a revenue source creator for the general fund. It is a revenue source creator to offset the harms to our youth that cost the citizens of the state of Utah hard money.
So when it gets applied to them, what would they use that for? What programs would they use that for?
Well, so what I'm going to do, I haven't added it into that, but I'm going to add in a reporting mechanism that HHS has to report back to us and kind of outline. I don't want to get into the weeds exactly how they spend it, but they kind of know. There's two things. I want them to spend it a certain way, but they also have to spend it a certain way, or we will fall out of that intermediate scrutiny. It has to be spent only on youth, and only on mental health, and ideally only on mental health caused by pornography. Do you understand? Because if it doesn't,
So is this like subsidies to clinics or something like that, or trees?
yeah, so that'll be actually kind of fettered out by HHS. So that'll be how it's distributed.
So that's the overseeing body.
Yeah, they'll make rule on how that does, and I'll have them report back to us, telling us exactly how they decided, and then we can say, well, no, or yes, or no. You know what I mean? So this will take a little bit fetter.
And people will oversee so that we don't have misappropriation.
Yeah, well, I mean, they already report back on their appropriation. I'm not saying that's perfect, right? But on this particular item, I need to be hyper vigilant. Not just that people might be concerned about how it's spent, but I have to be concerned for the reasons I'm outlined earlier.
It's interesting because we were just talking with Corinne Johnson from Utah That's United regarding 3 clicks on these devices in the schools, and they're not.
Isn't that crazy?
And there's supposed to be firewalls and filters and.
So let me tell you a statistic that'll blow your mind. This will blow your mind. 52% of young men. What were the ages on that? Can you give me my binder? You got it? Is it here?
Oh, no, the one's on the desk.
I think this may not be accurate, but it's close. 52% of young men, I want to say under the age of 13.
Southeast.
They worked this.
Oh, but
51%. That was off on 1%.
yeah.
51% of boys and 32% of girls encounter pornography before the age of 13. That's a national stat. I mean, this...
Well, it's increased that because of the tablets now. So that during COVID, they gave every student a tablet. All these tablets have access to the internet now, and a mother showed Corinne literally put it out on TikTok and social media. 3 clicks, literally she timed it with stop.
This is in school, or is this away from school?
School assigned tablet. She was
on the grounds outside.
She was out and about outside of on the school grounds in the grass.
Can we have that?
But 13 seconds, and she 3 clicks, and she was.
That's crazy.
It was the actual pornography she showed on.
Oh, that's crazy.
She blurred it out. She blurred it out, but you could.
So as I understand, I thought there was firewalls built in.
And she said those.
They don't
the point that Corinne was saying is that they know how to get around the firewalls. In fact, there's a Google Doc sheet going around, the students passing around on how to bypass the firewalls.
I'm gonna ask my daughter about that.
And so, what the point I was making,
and Weston.
Yeah, the point I was making is, you just need to eliminate the browsers off of those things. And you shouldn't have access to the server only.
Yeah, let's monitor.
Yeah. Why do they need access to the browser there anyway?
Right.
Yeah. If you have computers at home, you can access the browser at home. Your parents can monitor that. But the school shouldn't be providing.
Here's what's even crazier about that. Right now, whatever site they access, if they saw pornography, that parent right now could sue that pornographic website because they clearly didn't age gate. You understand what I'm saying? Right now, that's our law. That's what our law right now, before I pass. Actually, that part of it still will be in place. So in addition to the positive reinforcement of our Department of Consumer Protection, the parent will still have the right to sue pornographic websites if their child accesses it and they're not age gated.
That's good to know.
I'm waiting for somebody to just drop.
Well, the other issue is they're VPNing.
Yeah, no, I'm going to talk about that too.
The VPNing is so it's concealing the whole age.
There's a section of my bill that says positively, it doesn't matter where you are or what you've done with geofencing. It's not how it says it, but it doesn't matter. You have a responsibility to age gate if the individual is coming from Utah, regardless. Now, it's difficult to technology to actually track that. But I'm just putting it in there to make them aware. We know you can figure it out where they're coming from. We know I'm talking about pornographic website. We know you can figure it out. It's just age gate. So what happened, what you're talking about specifically, when Todd Weiler passed that bill 2 years ago, and this tells you why just the passing of that bill had a positive effect, even though you can get around it. Canada, which is the largest, by the largest geofenced Utah. Right now, if you try to open it, you can't get it. You can't open it. But you can VPN it and get there in a second. Just bounce it off another state somewhere. And people are doing it, certainly. And certainly kids are doing it. Yeah. And so that's what we're trying to solve. But without having some sort of active investigation arm, how are you ever going to... That's what my bill was. We're going to have active investigators watching the age gating. And then what will happen, this is some of the concerns. So I'm creating this bill where we're taxing material that's harmful to minors. So I'm going to be clear about this. And whether you agree with us or not, this is the intent of the bill. The bill is to age gate and positively enforce age gating, which is legal for us to do, clearly legal based on Supreme Court decision. Secondly, is to offset the harms to minors through the collection of the excise tax. It's not meant to be anything other than that. That's it. Because that's what's enforceable under our current law.
Who's are you going to support? Do you feel like you're supporting?
I think so, yeah.
What would anybody have against the bill? What do you hear me? They don't want, other than raising the tax.
Raising the tax, primarily. They may...
It's not that you're creating more government.
Well,
why they be against taxing because you're not even taxing a Utah entity.
Possibly, though. We could be. It could be.
It's highly unlikely.
Yeah.
Most of these are California-based, or there's a lot of them out there that are not even U.S.-based.
No, most of them aren't. So the lion's share are not U.S.-based.
Yeah.
Or lion's share. but there still could be some. So that's either. I mean, I suppose we're getting into the weeds a little bit, right? But that's okay. I mean, those are things.
Someone's bringing capital into the state. We're not taking.
But to be careful, I want to be careful. I want to be very explicit. We're bringing it in for one purpose and one purpose only on this bill. No other purpose. It's not meant for general funds. It's not meant as a revenue stream for the state for general funds. It is not that. It is for one thing and one thing only, and that is to offset the harms for children. I'm going to say that over and over again. So,
well, I can see why you have to say that, or else you might not get it passed because people think it's a tax and everybody.
Well, the other argument that you talked about was, or I don't remember which one you said it was, who would push back? And there's a possibility of pushing back based on free speech, right? The right for an adult to access uninhibited pornography. Whether or not you agree with that, that's been the precedent.
That is definitely definitely a precedent. But
so the question is, what am I doing? Is it inhibiting on an incidental level, which I believe it is, right? So to consider this, just forget everything that I just said about what's being taxed. If you have a 2% tax on a $30 monthly transaction, that's going to be less than $1 a month. I'm not saying that doesn't add up. It does. But that's incidental.
Yeah.
That's the standard that I'm trying to keep going back to. The Supreme Court has used that terminology. Is it incidental? Can you still get the access? And whatever hurdles you put in there, are they incidental? So that's what I'm trying to stick to. That make sense?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sounds like
Does that hit the floor yet?
Yeah. So we passed it in the Senate tax of revenue yesterday. So yeah, it was unanimous. And I felt like
That's the first committee, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was really difficult to draft because I had to work with the tax commission, I had to work with consumer protection, and there's the concern, right? That hey, somebody's going to have to look at pornography to figure out. And so we had to delve into that world, try to figure out how to solve that. We got it pretty well nailed, we think. So, as best we can. It's a tricky subject, being sensitive to those that are going to have to enforce it, collecting the tax, where the tax is going, the purposes of it, but we think we've got it.
You said that in this old Turkey, there was a friend of mine who's they found the son had been looking into pornography, and the father was member leadership in this ecclesiastical service, and so he had to go view, and they saying, "How did you get here? Show me what you're seeing, and what have you?" And it actually affected him, and he huddled for a little bit.
Yeah,
and we missed them.
Yeah, the outcomes are clear. In fact, I was going to read. Let's see, is it in here? Where is that stat? Let me see if I could find it here. Well, I'm going to read you two other stats, but I'm going to first read you this. Early exposure also, this is through multiple studies. Early exposure also increases the likelihood of sexually aggressive behavior, child abuse, involvement in sexual trafficking, and distorted views of relationships. Some of those, just that last one just lands on just logic. We know that. You just know that innately, right? Children here's the one that blew my mind. Children under 12 years old who have viewed pornography are statistically more likely to sexually assault their peers. That's crazy, right?
Yeah, it didn't hurt.
Yeah, so here's a more positive number. Now, this one's coincident, and so I should say anecdotal. We don't know if it's directly positive, but it may be correlated.
Yeah,
so the 2 years since Todd Waters' bill passed that required age gating, a Sharp survey indicated 28.4% fewer symptoms of depression throughout thoughts of suicide. This is among youth. 23.3% fewer suicide attempts. It could be coincidental, but it times exactly with it. It was increasing. We passed a bill. Those thoughts started to decrease.
And that's crazy. Where the source is for that, because you have a future episode where we're actually going to come up here and have
we had a big episode coming up that we're going to be filming here on March 13th. Where we've got I'm Baldry, Dan McCoy, Karen Lisenby, Trevor Lee, and then Corinne Johnson from Utah Parents United. Then we've also got 3 parents come in who have had children commit suicide. We're going to be discussing suicide.
A suicide belt.
But I want to just use before we do. Utah Parents United have been pretty heavily back this time on that. So anyway, suicide belt.
I had neither.
Oh no! In reference to the higher suicide rates on the belt states, right? Yeah, it's actually the belt goes across. It's not up and down. It's across.
It's up and down.
Is it up and down?
It's the entire amount.
Yeah. So I've read a bit about that. So that's fascinating because some of that has to do with seasonal depression. There's all sorts of things that feed into that, but some of it's seasonal depression, like the doldrums of winter. Where if you're on the east or west coast, you never have the doldrums of winter. So there's actually a lot to it than you might think. I've read a little bit, but not a lot. It's fascinating. But it is
for sure. The belts, is this a use?
Yeah, 15 to 19. It's literally New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, Colorado, Nevada, Idaho, Montana.
I want to see it from this belt.
Yeah. It may be harder than we think because there may be.
It's literally, like I said, such mountains.
Some actual seasonal effects from it. So that's a theory, right? And it's a valid one because that statistic goes way back, from what I understand. It's not.
We're getting. I think our numbers we're at 22.5 people per thousand from the suicide in the state.
Yeah.
And in New Mexico and Colorado, the high is at 25.
And there's certain populations within that are really high too.
That's just 15 to 19.
No, I mean there are certain populations
Demographics.
Yeah, no, I'm actually talking not young. I'm talking adults. There's like veterans are way higher.
Yeah, veterans are at 21 right now, and they were down to about 19 the last time we talked to VFW. They're down to about 19, so they're dropping below.
What's crazy is that's veterans across the board. That's not even necessarily war veterans. That's veterans across the board. That's hard to figure. I'm a veteran, and I don't have suicide. I don't have those tons, but I don't know what caused that. So anyway,
I don't know either. I mean, I have all 4 of my kids that are in military, so it amazes my kids in the military.
Yeah.
I'm never sure when I come to serve, but I'm legally blind in one eye. All my kids are sure that. But I don't know where that comes from, but I listen to a lot of other veterans that may just have issues, and whether it's PTSD coming back from stuff that they've seen, or just coming back and trying to integrate back into society with no skills that follow over. And that's probably the big issue. Most of them are going into security, become police officers or something in law enforcement, because a lot of other skills aren't transferring, obviously. And I think become a real estate agent or something like that, it's very, very difficult for them to transfer.
I think I drove heavy equipment. So I came back and started driving heavy equipment. And then I started interior construction. I worked construction for years. So one thing just kind of led to another in my life. So.
What made you want to start serving?
Oh, I had to get my parents' signature. I signed when I was a junior in high. Oh, serving here. I thought you meant military.
Yeah. What made you want to go into politics?
It's actually a funny story, I suppose, because it's not altruistic. So it's just this is rubber meets the road. This is the real story. I should give you a little bit of the background. So yeah, I went down to Dixie State College, from Dixie up to University of Utah, and then I got activated for Desert Storm. Came back and started working construction. And my wife and I got married, and I never did go back to school, and I just kept working construction. I actually ended up being a licensed journeyman plumber. I'm the only true tradesman that's up here. By the way, I'm one of 4 veterans. But and then I had some health issues, and the doctor basically said, you should find a job that you can not have to physically turn wrenches and whatnot. And then 3 replaced joints, 2 partial replaced joints. We don't know what this is. It's nothing that I did, and it's just life, right? What's that?
Stop to being so.
Yeah, it's probably true. Yeah. But I started selling real estate. So, and with that, I started working within my trade association. But not a union, but a trade association. And I started, got worked way up, and I ended up being the president of the state association. And then from president of the state association, I actually got assigned to be a real estate commissioner, where you should work on. You're appointed by the governor to kind of.
What governor was that?
Herbert. Yeah, and I mean, he appoints who. I mean,
It's recommended.
yeah. There's some recommendations that come from that community, right? So, anyway, nonetheless, you do a little bit of lobbying there for your trade, which every trade association does some level of lobbying, whether it be plumbers, electricians, or whoever, right? I did some lobbying there, but not ever thinking I'd be up here. Just that's what I was going to do. But my wife she got some people that encouraged her to run for city council in West Haven. You live in Syracuse then?
I'm in East Layton. I work in here.
Oh, okay. Anyway, she served 3 terms, and when Jeremy Pearson took out the House position that I was in before, he decided he wasn't going to run again. He kind of decided at the last minute. A couple of friends called my wife. This is the real story. Called my wife, and they said, "Hey, would you consider running for Jeremy's seat?" She's like, "Not only no, but hell no." And they said, "Well, is Cal there? Would he?" That's how I ended up here. There's no other. No,
kidding.
That's the real story. There's not. I wish I had a more altruistic. That's how I ended up here. Yeah, and that's it. So I ran and somewhat politically ignorant. We're not somewhat, quite a bit. But
Who were some of your mentors? You were fresher.
Carrie Ann.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, Carrie Ann and Mike Schultz. I say Mike. I live a couple miles from, just by the nature of, he lives in where I live in West Haven. Let's see, who else really? Ryan Wilcox and I have been pretty close. Brady Brabant and I are pretty close. But those are more peers. The guys over here, Carrie Ann was in before, and I went to her quite a bit, was picking her brain on things. Well,
She started out as city council. She didn't push her husband forward.
She knows policy. She's really bright, and so that was helpful to me. There's a couple others that, but probably, I'm trying to think of really mentor. Probably those that I would have looked. I don't know if they would have considered themselves mentors to me at all, but they were just people that I'd go to and pick their brain that I kind of respected, kind of how they thought and processed things. I'm more of a pragmatist than I am, I like to just get down to the weeds. Try to figure out the weeds of the problem. So,
What was better than emotional?
yeah, I've lost my emotions a couple times up here. This is a pressure cooker.
Yeah.
My aunt's laughing because she's seen it once this year.
I don't see how you not.
It was, yeah.
Because you got a mix of Republicans up here. I mean, you got people that are really, really conservative, and you got people that are Republican but not so conservative. And that's kind of the fight that we've been having on our podcast, is saying, look, we've got to have true conservatives up here, because we're not always going the right direction, but we try to take ourselves the right direction. A couple of really controversial ones that are coming out right now is what Trevor Lee's putting out. If you've seen any of his bills that he's put out on the House side.
Let's see. I'm getting a couple confused. There's Malloy's one on the citizenship and voting.
There's that one, and that was part kind of tagging in with Trevor Lee's. He's got an immigration bill where he's trying to remove all incentives to illegals. That means no Medicare, no Medicaid, no WIC, no food stamps, no nothing. Limit the driver's license capabilities. He says we've got to support what Trump and ICE are doing more without having to have ICE go and arrest everybody.
So generally, I would agree with
de-incentivize some details.
You have to figure that out.
Because you de-incentivize enough where they just start self-reporting.
I mean, generally that idea I would agree with, but there's always details that get in the way of things, because you can have, whether we like it or not, you can have a legal couple here, and they have a child here, and that child's a citizen, right? And so how do you decouple?
Well, that's
from I'm just saying that's a potential problem.
But where there's instances where everybody's illegal, and the vast majority of the illegals that are here that are participating in these programs are just single adults.
Yeah.
They're finding that the vast majority are just single adults that just cost.
My father worked here with a visa until he could get visa for my mother and my sisters to be able to come over legally. So if you don't make the right choice,
Let me be clear. I support ICE 100%. But we always have in Utah. That's why we don't have a problem. We don't have people on the streets going crazy.
The questions
Because our law enforcement supported them and continues to support them.
Oh yeah, that's been great. Even Cox is supporting him.
Yeah.
Cox is not always on
No, I
side of things. See, but and even he supported that. What we're trying to figure out is how much support would a bill like that get to literally just kind of take all the incentives away? Because if you look at states like California and Minnesota's everywhere in the news right now, they have insane amounts of incentives right now that's making all the illegals go to their states. That's why they call themselves sanctuary cities or sanctuary states, because they are openly saying, look, you can come in here and have your in-state tuition. You can come here and get on the food stamps. You can come here and have Medicaid. You come here and have all this. So they're incentivizing it. Obviously, they have a completely different goal than what we have. I mean, their goal is 2030 census. Let's just put bodies in the streets that we can count so we don't lose our legislative seats. But as well, they're giving driver's licenses to all of them. There's already reports, or not reports, it's a fact that during the Trump administration or the Biden administration, they were giving out Social Security numbers within 2 weeks of them getting here. And as soon as you have a Social Security number, you can go get a driver's license. As soon as you have a driver's license, you can register to vote. And then there's a lot of them, even though it's illegal, are getting on our social services and registering to vote.
You went, to be clear though, you went from what California is doing to making the assumption
that. I'm just asking, what support do you think we'd have to eliminate any type of incentives that we have?
I think there's general support, but I'm not going to speak on the House bill until it needs to get over here, because my bandwidth is only so wide. Generally, I support all that concept, but it's always in the details, right? So we just have to see what the details are in the bill. I just have until I get over here. I only have so much bandwidth, and it will get over here, and I'll have to put them trying.
yeah.
Well, one bill that has gotten over here is the judges.
Yeah.
Now going from 5 to 7. What's your opinion on that bill?
So it depends on what we can bifurcate. Just look at it purely. If we were, so first of all, I voted for it. So that's already done. So you come to where I was. But if we want to talk about
problems with it personally, I don't have.
But if you want to talk about the details as to why I voted for it, then I can. But I already voted for it, so it's kind of that's down the road a bit. It started over here, by the way. Now, so I knew about it explicitly because it was over here.
Well, I have questions because I respect Glenn Beck's opinion, and my understanding, we've been talking about it for weeks with different people on our podcast, and that we have the backlog. That's why the abortion bill hasn't been heard, but he's at the backlog, not in the, why are you guys stacking the courts? And I thought,
well, let me address stacking the court. And I didn't hear about Glenn Beck coming about this how bad I am. Social media.
He's really upset.
I didn't know it till today. Here's the problem with even using the term stacking the court or that position. Stacking the court, and you think about it, just purge for your mind for a moment, our circumstance in our state. The only time you hear the term stacking court is if the party flips. In other words, the party in power is the Republican, and it flips to Democrat, and then the Democrats want to stack because the conservatives were installed under the Republican. There's no party flip. It's always been Republican.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
And I'm not saying it always will be Republican, but that is irritating because that's ignoring the elephant in the room. It was Cox that appointed 3 of them, and 3 of the 5 judges we have, he appointed 3, and he's asking for the expansion. So take that into consideration. It's not a Democrat governor. It's a Republican governor that appointed the 3 out of the 5 and now is asking to expand to 5 to 7. How is that? That doesn't fit into
You're right. I also brought up the point where are we the only or one of the only states? I have no fines. Everybody else has that. So
yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm just making the point that if you're going to use that narrative of stacking, the facts just don't fall there. Now, and additionally, there's another part that's important there, and that is the same governor that appointed those three. It's likely. I'm not guaranteeing anything, but it's likely the next governor will be a Republican. I mean, I'm just speaking reality. I'm not guaranteeing anything. I don't want anybody to be ruffled feathers by that. And it's likely the Senate will remain either close to a supermajority or majority. The governor will appoint them, and the Senate will confirm. The exact same makeup of the Senate that appointed that confirmed the last one, the exact same Republican Party that appointed the past ones. The system which would create that quote-unquote tax Supreme Court is the exact same conservative Republican system. Now, you can go back and say fault the system, say you appointed that's a different story. We're talking about is it packing? And it just doesn't fit the definition.
Well, educate me on this too, because he also made the point of because your Supreme Court, Utah, is not the one that's backlogged. Is that true or not?
So it depends on how deep you dive into the stats. Yes, it is backlogged, but it's technical stat. Brandon Brammer's much better at answering this than I am, because he knows the technical part of it. If you look at pure case log, you should interview him on this. Brady Brammer. You absolutely should, because he can nail down the stats better than anyone up here. It's not even close. But there is. But I guess I don't even want to make that argument. There's a backlog, and that's the reason. There is another elephant in the room here, and that is it does look bad. It looks as if we're stacking. My argument I just gave you, it's not, because it's not party flipping, right? So I can't get up to
that. And this, I want you to help with this one, because the main reason people think we're stacking because of the timing.
The timing's it looks bad. I'm just saying the reality. I'm not going to shy away from it. It does not look great.
And all the media is on top of that, right? I mean, you guys didn't like what the judge did on Prop 4. You're retaliating. I'm like, that's not. I'm agreeing with you. It's bad timing, but it's not the reason. We do have a problem with the judiciary legislating from the bench. And my opinion has always been, you can decide whether a bill is constitutional, yes or no, and send it back up and say, okay, I don't think this is constitutional. But you can't override what the Senate and House have done. They're elected officials. Their job is to create a law.
Now we're talking about the cases there. But I mean, they're tied together, right? I mean, because that's where the concern is that we're simply doing it because we don't like those decisions. You can make that argument, and I get it. The timing looks that way. That's why I want to bifurcate those arguments. First of all, be clear about what is truly stacking. I think I've proven the point. You can't really make that argument. But you can still make the argument that we didn't like it and that we're trying to change things. It's just doesn't meet the traditional stacking argument, because it's the same party. That gets me so frustrated to think about that. But that structurally, you've said it, this isn't outside the realm of reason. In fact, it falls right in the realm of normality, going from 5 to 7. We've done that over time.
We're one of the 3 states that have 5, so I'm perfectly okay with
that. Structurally, it's perfectly within the realm of norm. But here's the key. 2 or 3 years ago, Senator Weiler had openly said we should be adding to our Supreme Court. So this conversation has been being had for a solid 3 years up here. It's not new. It is not new. So the idea that it came out of whole cloth in the past 6 months is just demonstratively false. That's an important beat.
Well, the media is always going to twist that. The Salt Lake Tribune is tearing it apart.
Yeah.
So that's what they're always going to do. There's
Where can I find notice that it was being discussed before? Where would I find?
Well, I don't know if you could find that on record, but you possibly could. I know that Todd Weiler, I remember hearing conversations about it up here 2 years ago. But there could be, I could ask around if there's something on record at some point that somebody had mentioned it, maybe in a committee meeting even. Like it'd probably be a judiciary if it happened, it's on record. I'm just telling you, from firsthand experience.
And why was
I was here. We talked about because of the structure of things we're talking about. The exact had nothing because the cases weren't even. I mean, it was out there, but it wasn't where it is. The hypersensitivity, right, that we have now. It just wasn't there. That wasn't even on our mind. It was, hey, we were 3, now we're 5, and it's been a long time. Our population is changing. Does 7? It was just a debate. Does 7? Is it better? So anyway, I think it's worth talking.
Someone's better because I mean, rather have more people discussing the topic. I don't want to go 9 like the U.S. Supreme Court or something like that, but I did think 5 was too few.
Yeah, I think
Berman was good.
I think whether you're 5 or 7, either one can fit right here. But we are growing as a population, and if the trends keep coming, we would go to 7 at some point, even without this happening. You understand? We would be at 7 in the next 5 years, whether we do it now or we did it 2 years ago or we do it 4 from now. We were going to 7, and so I just think it was a political reality. But again, I don't want to say that it doesn't look. I get perception.
I'm all for it, but as a podcast, we're just trying to give ammunition to the listener, right? We got pretty large listenership. Just try to give them ammunition because they have all the questions. We see it in our comments all the time. Like I don't have any problems with it. You know, the whole Prop 4 coming into the mix kind of makes it shady, but people are trying to put the two things together.
That's why I'm trying to give you arguments that it's the same arguments that I've had in my head and that I debated with myself, some of my other colleagues up here. And that's the reason I voted how I voted, because I'm like, wait a minute, what's packing? Let's look at packing. Let's look at the history of packing, when it was introduced. And that was the biggest motivating factor that I just kind of set that aside. Okay, I can't emotionally deal with maybe how this looks or the idea of packing because it's fundamentally weak argument because it's not a party. There's not a different party asking for the.
Good. It was the same thing. It was a big thing during the Biden administration because he was trying to go from 9 to 11.
That's a
long time. And then I think that conversation's led into this one because it's still in the back of everybody's mind. I think that one's graying this one out a little bit.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference in the U.S. Supreme Court and what we're doing because the parties nationally go back and forth almost every election, and this is not the case here.
Yeah. Yep. No, I mean, so there's that.
Yeah. What about Prop 4?
How did Prop 4 happen back in 2008?
Well, I'll tell you how it happened is the individuals that were pushing Prop 4 recognized they couldn't get a constitutional amendment. That's it. That's it. They recognized they couldn't amend our Constitution. So what was their next best bet? And I get that some listeners out there may say, well, he's just, he's siding on the side of the Republicans. What's the other? But that's a factual reality. That's not speculative. They knew they couldn't get the constitutional amendment. I talked to them. Listen, this is when I first, let's see, how long ago was Prop 4? It was...
like 18
years.
This is when I first ran for office. Yeah. So I remember talking to him and still being a bit political analyst, and I was a little confused on propositions and changing the Constitution because the methodologies, there's some parts of it that are saying they knew they couldn't get a constitutional amendment, so they went this route, which is fair. It's in our Constitution, they can go this route. But I want to be clear why they did it, because they knew there's what our Constitution says. They knew it. They knew they couldn't change that. So the next best thing is to run Prop 4, and then it became this weird kind of contradiction. The voters.
How did it pass?
The voters.
Yeah, Prop 4s are.
The voters, 51%, by the way. 51-49. So the question is, do we know everything today would have passed again? I don't think so. But maybe. I don't know. That'll be up to the voter. But the voters voted. That's part of our Constitution. It's another path to make laws in our state. We can debate what's in the Federalist Papers. They kind of debated this a long time ago. That's not the best way to do things. A representative republic is what we decided on. It's probably how we should govern, but we have this other path. So they ran that, and based on that, because there was this rub, Prop 4 passed. We have a Constitution that explicitly says the legislature should explicitly says it. So now we have this rub. So what do you do? Now, one party will say, well, because we have this rub, we had to negotiate and I can't remember the bill number, but we had a bill that someone would say override Prop 4, but didn't really override Prop 4. They adjusted.
So they're trying to override.
Well, no, I'm saying the bill that we passed years ago to adjust Prop 4. So we adjusted Prop 4. I think for legitimate reasons, try to say, all right, we got this rub, so let's fix it, and we fixed it. But then the Supreme Court said, yeah, you can't fix it. And that's what they said.
This is Uriah Kennedy from God and Country, and I've been fishing since I was a little kid. My father used to take me out there and teach me how to tie the knots to get my lure on the end of that line and then cast it into the stream or in the local lake that we were fishing at. There are very few things in this world that are more relaxing and more fun than getting out on the water and pulling in a big fish. In order to have that type of success that you want, to be able to get out there with your kids and be able to have them have that success, or not get skunked yourself, you have to have the best equipment. We all have known and trusted Rapala from the time we were little kids. Rapala has the best lures and the best equipment that you could possibly buy. Trust Rapala in all these needs and go to Rapala by using the link that is on our description, our QR code that's going to be popping up on your screen. Again, you must use the link in our description or the QR code that's popping up on your screen. Trust Rapala for these fishing needs. Again, any type of lures, tools, knives, clothing, and apparel that you will need, you can go to Rapala and get those needs taken care of. Enjoy the water and enjoy being out there with your kids and be successful at the same time, because there's nothing like getting skunked, but there's nothing more joyous than pulling in that big fish. So trust Rapala for those fishing needs and go to Rapala right now using the link in the description, the QR code that's popping up on your screen, and thank you for supporting our channel.
Listen, almost every law we pass up here, almost every, 99.9% of it is adjustment of a previous law. By far.
Really?
That's what we do. There's rarely is there truly new, just like even the online, the bill that I just passed, we just talked about. That's adjustment to previous laws. I just told we adjusted Todd Weiner's law, right? We're adjusting previous tax law. It's adjustments to previous laws. Almost everything's that way. There's really rarely, we're getting into it now, some stuff with AI. So you have this new worlds where we have to explore new law. Most of it's just to law. It's crazy to think we can't go adjust a previous law because all laws, all of them, the one I'm telling you I think is really good in online youth protection has flaws. I don't know what they are now, but they're going to reveal themselves at some point. They will, and somebody will adjust it. To think that we can't adjust a previous law that's passed through an initiative process of Prop 4 is the biggest problem with that. I know that redistricting is a problem. Biggest problem is that idea that we can't go back and adjust. It raises that proposition to the level of even higher than a constitutional law. It's crazy. That's the craziest decision that's ever been made in Supreme Court history. And that's why now I'm going to clarify. It isn't quite black and white as that. They didn't say you can't adjust it. There's limits to what we can adjust, but it's really limited. As if it was, the problem was how they worded it. If it's to adjust the government, we're limited on what we can adjust law. Law adjust the government. I don't know how else to look at them. That's what they all do. So I don't know. I got to look past some of that. That's a rough one on me.
Well, it's because over the last couple of years, we've had a bigger problem with activist judges than we've ever had in the past. I mean, we see it nationally with everything that Trump's been trying to put forward. We're seeing it here in the state of Utah, where the judiciary is becoming more and more activist and kind of override what the legislature is doing. And it's not whether they're just making a decision as to whether something's constitutional or not. They're literally deciding and making changes themselves. And I don't know how we pull that power back into the legislature and keep the judiciary just judging and instead of making decisions.
I'll be honest, I don't know either. I don't know. There's lots of ideas. I don't know. I suppose I just don't.
We've discussed at having the grading system like we have for the Senate and the legislature, so that delegates can judge them. So we
Judges?
yes, to judge the judges, to grade them, so we know how to get out. Because most of the public, I mean, they don't know how to vote for the judges.
I don't know if I do, and I'm in it. Every time I get one, I'm like, well, I don't know. I have to make some phone calls to some
Yeah,
friends.
we all make phone calls.
So I mean, I get it. It's kind of somewhat flawed, but I think I've listened since this has happened. I start to worry more and think more about our, because we're to confirm right appointments, and so I take that more weighty and given the circumstances.
Is there a way to pass law that would force a reconfirmation every
There's some
8 years or something like that?
There's some ideas that you really explored and up here along those lines. Brady Brammer's talked about them, and you're kind of balancing the things you go along. He had 4 different bills that we were going to run last year, and we adjusted some of them. So slowly over time, I can't give. I'm not versed enough to take you through them, but yeah, there's some ideas. There's similar.
Those throwing out there.
Yes.
Then I know Carrie Ann was putting out something there when the judge's track record be put on the ballot, so that when we're doing the reconfirmations as a voter, you kind of know their history.
Yeah, I heard Mike Schultz talk about that too. Accountability, disclosure, right? So everything. I don't know how that would work in practice. I'd have to think that. But think about this.
Be transparent.
Yeah, think about this. Every vote I take, you can find every single one of them. Every one of them.
And that's,
So how is that not fair?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, I don't.
every single ruling should be.
Yeah, in public and quick. I think you can. I think there's ways to get to them. They're just not readily accessible. I think the idea is make them just as easy accessible as it is accessible.
Exactly.
It makes you think, why?
Why?
Before.
Why that just seems so logical, doesn't it? Yeah, like really logical.
Because ever since I'm pretty political, she's pretty political, and so we get the phone calls on these judges voting for it.
No,
I confirm no, but not. I'm like, well,
luckily enough, well, maybe it's bad luck. I become friends with attorneys. But that's not good luck. I never know. Brady's one of them. Brady's office is right here, and so I talked to him a lot about. Listen, I was a journeyman plumber, and then I started develop a little real estate, sold real estate. I'm a quick study, but there's certain things that are just weeds on someone that's really deep legal matters and how we retain judges and reviews and things like that. Brady's really on top of it, and I talked with him. That some of it I just have to lean on somebody like that. Say, hey, do you know about this judge? This on the ballot. What do you think? And he might reach out to a friend. So, but not everybody has that, right? It'd be nice just to click on the website, like government, government website, to find what they do.
Yeah.
I mean, for instance, you can get on our website, government website now, and you can see what every single government employee is paid. Every one of them. How can we not just put some decisions on them too? If we can do that, certainly we could do that. Right? I mean, it's certainly
I want to join the ways on that subject too, because we've done that many times.
I don't know if you extend into the Clinton area. Are those your casinos?
Yeah.
So one of your constituents sent me. Sometimes people send these questions to me, and I just discuss things with people. I am not a legislator.
Yeah,
but they're we need the law about this. Like, great, call your legislator. But they were really upset that we passed term limits for our national senators, but not for our own. And she said, "How hypocritical is that?"
Yeah, it might be hypocritical.
And I want to have the debate about term limits.
Listen.
I don't know where I am. What are you talking about?
That's crazy, because I don't know where I'm at, and I'm up here. I listen again. This is a Federalist Papers kind of debate, right? And term limits. That's what your ballot's for. That's kind of what that's.
I had that really friendly debate with her.
That's what my core belief is.
I said, so what? Then the voters should just be lazy and go, doesn't matter. They'll be out in 20 years. I don't know.
I think
I think it would be a fun debate.
so. The core principle is I think that should be just on the ballot box. Then the pragmatic side of me, all right, let's have a debate inside myself.
But then as long as you have signatures here in Utah, it's not done at the ballot box.
Yeah,
It's done on the TV
well,
and the flyers with the money and outside money.
so
But that's my point too, is as long as we have SB54 on the line, that works. With this SB54, how you can rely on the ballot on...
Because then the delegates don't matter.
all right, well, fair enough. So I'm a caucus goer. That's how I've gotten in office all three times. That being said, I may not be on the same page with you on signature. Probably close, but maybe not on the exact same page. Because if the overall voters vote for a candidate, I believe that reigns supreme no matter what. I trust in that. I have faith in that, and I always will. They cast their ballot. Whoever that wins that race is who that's my rep. That's my senator. That's what everybody voted on. Do I think the path that they should have got there should be through the caucusism? Yeah.
Your average voter's not vetting the candidate.
Yes. But what you just said in that statement though is you're undermining the people's ability to vote for their. So you're suggesting that they shouldn't vote?
No.
Okay. So what do you? Cause remember, you got to be careful what you're saying there.
I participate in pre-vetting them because
So I get what you're saying, but when you make that argument, you have to be careful because you're undermining our system for voting somebody into office, and that is every vote counts and everybody gets to vote.
Yeah.
So if we're going to say, well, it doesn't really count because you didn't vet them, then you're undermining that vote. And I think you have to be careful with that argument. So, but remember, we're not philosophically apart though, because I caucus, right? But I think we have to be.
I disagree with that.
We have to be really careful with these arguments. I think if we want, what do you want?
I can understand where you come from there, but I think that's more the count my vote argument that was out there, and most of us don't agree with the count my vote argument. We're trying to, if the voters want to vote and have their vote count, then they need to participate more in the caucus system, not less.
I don't disagree.
They need to get out there caucus night and go through the convention system, because the problem we have, and the problem we're going to continue to have, if you have the signature process, is money always wins. You'll have all these outside the state influences coming in and just putting buku dollars into somebody's campaign.
So could I?
What if it becomes a whole?
What if I made this argument
on TV?
Now I'm not proposing. What if I made this argument because it would take away the money? So you lower the signature standards to $500. So that a friend and family could do it. So there's no longer money involved.
then why the delegates? Why not?
Oh no, that's another argument, but it takes away the money argument. So now it's just about signatures versus no more money. This is what the debates. These are the debates we have to have. We have to talk about.
Collect the signatures.
It's still
And
money.
outside paper.
Let's say it's 100 signatures. I'm just saying, take away the money from.
I think that makes it worse.
Okay.
Because you could have any type of outside influence say, hey, all I have to do is 500. Let's put all this money behind this person. Whereas the caucus system,
I can get 500 with my family.
yeah, but
Without any
but so could every other special interest group.
I'm trying to make you make the argument without using the outside money argument. Make the argument that you're making.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to make. Don't make that argument from the outside money because all you got to do is reduce signatures and it takes it away.
Yeah, no,
It does.
because once you're on the ballot, who's put the money behind that campaign?
Well, somebody can put money behind the caucus goers. Somebody can put money behind me too. I'm telling you, I'm trying to give you what I think is advice on how to win this argument. And we keep making the same argument,
Yeah,
and we're never going to get anywhere.
but there's too much money behind those who do not want good candidates in there. There's too much outside influence coming in there.
I think that's
Whereas,
so we're just going to philosophically disagree because I think you're going to make that argument. It's never going to change. You're going to keep making that argument. And I'm telling you, it's never going to change. Has it changed? And you keep making that argument. So I just want you have to think of this as new. You have to think of it different. You have to. And
The majority of the problems that we have in this beautiful institution right here is from signatures.
so let me throw something out there too, because I don't know what'll happen on SB54 tomorrow. But what if we took away one of the three, just for argument's sake? This now I just want you to meaning one of the three paths. There's three paths, right? So signatures, there's signature and caucus, and there's caucus. What if you take the pure signature path away, no matter what? Just for argument. I'm not saying do this. I'm not saying this is the answer. But then all of a sudden, that individual has to go to caucus. They have to. No matter what, they have to go to caucus. They may have still got a signature, but they got to go face the delegates and talk to them. I think I think it's a worthwhile debate just to happen. It's a compromise, but it's a worthwhile debate.
Well, I would agree with that because as long as you have to face the delegates, yeah, that's what you have to do.
I'm not saying that the signatures would still count, but they'd have to go face it. They'd have to realize they'd have to be in that environment.
Because it takes the money out of it. What I can get into a library or into a school building and I have to face people and actually have real conversations and not just have a TV out or radio out or all million signs out of the freeway where it becomes more of name recognition and how much money can I pump into it. But where I have to have serious conversations with them, that's where I think we lead and we win. Because that takes the only through that way does it take the money out. When I have serious conversations with delegates, you can't escape anything.
I'm going to point one other argument out.
Right.
You probably won't like this, but I'm just going to tell you the facts. Again, remember, I go to caucus. I get on the ballot. That's the way I've done it. So, where it's coming from?
That's because you didn't have an opponent that collected signatures.
No, I did. My first year, so to be clear, my first year I had eight opponents. So, and then I had a real opponent. I only won by 400 votes against a Democrat. So, yeah, no, don't. So, yeah, I didn't have a real opponent this last time. I'll agree with that. But the first, remember, I've ran 4 times. So, anyway, all right, there was I. See, you threw me off. Oh, I went back and just looked at the numbers. And this is fascinating. Now, again, I don't know if it's anecdotal, corollary, or not. 2010 was it 2010?
2014 was SB54.
SB54. So, oh yeah, that's what I tracked it to. We've always had a supermajority, but we went from, you could say it's correlated or not, but we went from 2014, prior to that, we went up 10 seats in the House. Either from 7 to 10 seats since the signature pass. We went from barely a supermajority to a blown out supermajority. I just wonder why that is. I want you to think through that because it's there. Statistics I'm just like, holy cow.
With signatures, some people got the R behind their name, but were not did not believe in the Republican platform.
That's a fair argument. I just want to point out that's just a statistical reality. I like stats because they help me think things.
Yeah, well, what she's saying, I've seen that person because I was a county delegate and a state delegate, and I've seen that a lot. Whereas people know that if you have a L behind your name or a D behind your name, you're not going to win in this state. So now register Republican anyway.
That being said, I've had some people say that I'm conservative. I voted for every tax cut. I'm probably more conservative on my stance on abortion than 99% of the conservatives up here. Yeah, they've hit the Republican platform. Mine's probably more conservative than theirs. My gun conservative. I am conservative when it comes to guns.
Yes.
But for some reason, every once in a while, because I don't align with some things, I'm as conservative as they get. But I get sometimes say, well, you're not hard right. I'm like, what is hard right?
I don't like that term either, hard right either.
I don't know what to tell you.
That is, yeah.
What else can I do?
That's what I say.
Sometimes you get that from individuals just because, I don't know, because they didn't vote on one bill that they think you have to look at things holistically, right? Here, it's not one or two bills. And sometimes it's not readily apparent. There's one bill that I voted. I'm going to be honest with you, I felt pressured to vote for it. It was during COVID that I really had a hard time with. And I voted because I was getting so much pressure from the conservatives. But it wasn't the conservative vote. That's what's fascinating, right? I was thinking voting against it was the true conservative vote. And I ended up voting for it. And that was a restriction on businesses during COVID. And I think a business in the United private property rights reign supreme.
Amen.
And we may have done some things after COVID that was too much. So if you dealt someone or wanted to do certain things to restrict during COVID, I think they probably should have been open. But I voted on the side of pushing back against that because it was just a lot of harm that happened during COVID, right? We were trying to push back against it. So we did that, but it wasn't the true concern. We should have stuck hard, cool on private property rights. You go home, you get a say. That's it. That's it. Right?
I'm really curious to.
I have to think.
Who thought that was?
I have to think back on it because it was, man. I mean, I'm like, you guys. I remember pulling out, oh, this is the wrong vote. This is a private property rights issue, and they're like, well,
I remember talking to Trevor about him taking some flack from people saying, "What are you doing?" But we talked about getting the base hit, where he's like, "I didn't think it was going to pass, and it's hoped for."
oh,
So
yeah.
I wanted to take the base hit, so then it got a lot of flack for it.
Yeah, there's some issues where the pragmatist area, listen, do I get 80% of one or 100% of one? If I can get 80% of what I want, is it better than not getting it at all? Those big questions. Yeah, and so you're just like, garbage. Yeah, we're always kind of facing that.
I would love to take the base hit on SB54 so hard and get rid of signatures.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just brought that up. I was just curious if it. I had never even thought about that till that moment as we were talking about. What if we did that? What would that do? I don't honestly don't. I was just talking. So these are the kind of conversations we need to have amongst conservatives to figure out. All right, what is the best path forward here? And how do we accomplish really all what we want?
Well, if you could get rid of signatures and actually put a budget out there where you actually, instead of all these Reagan TV ads that's spotting the file as outside money, and instead actually spend a little bit of money advertising for caucus nights and get out your caucus and did an awareness campaign at least, I think we'd have a bigger attendance of caucus. Because I think one of the biggest arguments we have against caucus is the attendance. And that's probably the biggest issue. But no matter how you frame it, signatures just create too much money involved where there's not direct conversations.
So I want to ask just forget signatures exist. You don't think money's still involved?
Well, it's
that's just not involved.
Yeah, money's going to be
No.
always gonna be
If I have a primary against somebody, and we're both going at it at caucus, I get that it's a little different at caucus, but if you have more money, you have an advantage. That's just the reality.
but it's not near as big as advantage because no matter what happens, if I have $500 or $500,000, I still have to talk to the same people.
No, that's fair, but how
Delegates still give everybody the same
I
shit.
do marketing for a living, and whether I'm marketing for 30 people or 300,000, the marketing to 30 could be just as powerful as the marketing to 300,000. You have to understand that. That's just the reality that I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to get you to back away from the pure money argument, because I think it's
my people in the neighborhood, I'm trying to, we're starting now, getting the word out. Caucus is coming up March 17th. We need to come out, and they're like, why? As long as we have signatures.
Yeah, we are stuff.
Sorry, I'm with you, but I got floor time starting. It's going to start 2 minutes. And
Well, let's just end what's the biggest bill you're working on? What's the biggest thing you're wrap it up with that? Just tell us what's the biggest thing you're seeing on the Hill right now?
the biggest bill I got is what we already talked about. So there's several others.
Well, out of the floor, what are you seeing as the biggest?
The biggest issues, I'll tell you, the biggest issue is trying to figure out property tax, and that is a hard nut to crack. And how to, because first of all, the state doesn't really collect that. That's all collected by locals, right? So that's a local tax. None of it comes to the state. And if the listeners hear anything else, that's what they should hear, because that is local. That's county government, that's school district, that's fire stations, that's library. None of it goes, well, there's a tiny portion goes to the state. And guess
what is the argument up at this level? What do you guys
trying to figure out how it's property tax is too high, it's too great a burden, but what do we do? And that's a hard nut to crack. Right? It's not.
Sounds like another episode.
It's a local government issue versus a state issue. It's autonomy. It's all. It's all.
Is there a bill
formulas?
Just discussions right now about that.
There's several bills.
Well, that was our session with Senator Musselman. As you can see, he's a great senator, very, very conservative, got a very good things working for us up here on the Hill. Not quite in alignment with SB54 like we would like to see on the Senate.
But it's a great example of we can have a debate on ideas and still be courteous and get information from somebody else's point of view is very helpful.
And his whole opinion there is making sure that everybody has a chance to vote, and he wants to kind of trust the populace a little bit more. I'm not that trusting. I think there's way too much money in it, and he's obviously of the opinion that if money's the argument, it's not a very good argument up here on the Hill. I think it's a great argument because money just distorts everything. It corrupts everything. You got to take it out of the scenario. And yes, like he was making that point, that money is still going to be involved in the caucus system.
Of course.
But not near as much as it is out in the public sector. If you can keep it within the caucus system, all the TV and radio ads don't matter near as much. All the billboards out there don't matter as near as much. Because in the caucus system, when you're going from booth to booth within the schools or within the local libraries, you have a booth, you got a table, you got some handouts, you got some pins, but it really just comes down to the one-on-one conversations you have with the delegates. In the caucus system, a lot of these senators, congressmen, anybody has to run will actually go to the delegates' homes and inside their living room have the discussion with them. That is a lot more informative when you're one-on-one with them and outside this public environment where they can kind of get up on a soapbox and just give out these one-liners.
When somebody running for office is one-on-one with you, they feel more beholden to you instead of this invisible constituent that they represent.
Yeah, it can't be invisible. You can't be invisible because that's the problem. Is there's a mass of people out there. I'm going to put out a couple of radio spots, some TV spots. I'll spend a couple $1 million on it, and I'll get into office because I'll just gain that name recognition. And we as the public, we can go to rallies, we can go to public sessions with these people and kind of hear them speak, but listening to what they're saying is not the same as kind of honing in on what they actually believe in and asking them back and forth questions, which is what the delegates can do. I can stand up on a pedestal somewhere on a microphone and blast out what everybody wants to hear, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's what I believe in once I get into office. Whereas with the caucus system, when you're sitting in somebody's living room or you're sitting in front of a folding table at a library or a school somewhere and you're talking to delegates, you can't hide your personality, you can't hide what you believe in because it all comes out in those conversations. And that's why the caucus system works so much better in our scenario.
And when you have a personal relationship with your representative or your senator, when they're here at the House right now voting on bills, your opinion is much more effective. You sending a text or an email in the middle of the session or even a phone call is going to hit harder if they actually know who you are.
Yeah, exactly. It's not Joe Blow public getting a hold of them in there. They've got a finite number of delegates that they have to answer to, and when a delegate calls, they have to answer that. So when we're in caucus night, we're voting for those delegates, and say, I voted for so-and-so delegate, and I want to get answers from my congressman. It's very difficult just to call up the congressman or a senator and get them on the phone. Whereas I know who I voted for as a delegate, and I can call my delegate and say, hey, can you get a hold of the senator for me? I need these answers. Delegates can do that because the person you're electing is beholden to that delegate because they know that's what it's going to put them into office. So it's just, there's a lot more power. People think it removes power from the public, but it actually gives the public more power because you've got another individual that you can discuss things with that has a direct line with that senator or that congressman, and they respect and have to answer to that individual because they know there's a finite number of delegates that are going to keep them in office. And it's an honest system. Again, I just don't trust mass media. I don't trust these rallies. Trump does great with the rallies, but it's different when we come to these state positions. So kind of a disagreement there with Musselman on SB54, but
That's okay.
other than that, I think everything else will work out really, really well. I do like his bill that he's putting over there, the pornography bill, and hopefully that goes through with flying colors and puts more constraints on that so our youth are not able to access that. Putting a little 2% tax on that thing, I have no problems with that. They should be paying for something for the destruction that they're causing.
Absolutely. If you have questions about upcoming bills or bills that are going to be heard this session, let us know in the comments section and maybe we can reach out to them. We'll be up here at the Capitol a couple times during this session.
Excellent. So last week we were talking about we're going to have a special podcast coming up, and we were saying it's going to be the end of February. So we're going to have a special podcast. We're going to have Trevor Lee. We're going to have Carrie Ann Lisby. We're going to have Dan McKay, and we're going to have Heidi Baldry.
And Utah Parents United.
Corinne Johnson is going to be on there with us. And then we're going to have 3 parents on there that have had children that have committed suicide. And we're going to be discussing the big suicide topic, the suicide belt, which is the Western United States for some reason. We mentioned that here in the podcast with Musselman, and he thinks it has a little bit to do with the winter light and dark hours, and it could weigh into that heavily. I know that's a big thing up north.
And it's kind of a nonpartisan topic, so we hope that everybody can engage and put some thought into hearing what the opinions are and what we can do to make a difference here.
Yeah, we're also going to be discussing DEI and CRT, a little bit of the same topic about our kids being exposed to too much internet, exposed to pornography on their school-assigned tablets. That's all going to be part of the discussion. But it's going to be here at the Capitol building on March 13th. March 13th at 11 a.m. 11 a.m. here. We're going to be in the press room. So if any of you know where the press room is, where they normally have press conferences, here at the Capitol building. So you, our listeners, want to come and just kind of stand around and watch what happens, you're free to come and join us up here. So again, it's going to be on March 13th at 11 a.m. here at the State Capitol building. You're free to attend. And then it'll be out to the public that same Sunday so everybody can watch that podcast. Any last comments for this session?
Nope. Pay attention to the session bills that are important. Get engaged with what's happening in Utah politics and your respective states. You matter. We are the people, and we're God and country.
Yeah, one last thing. So again, down below, we have our t-shirts and everything up for sale. So look down below and right below this video and buy some merch. This is God and Country. We'll see you next session.